I am in Vevay, Indiana, and in this video we'll visit a temporary Smithsonian exhibit in town, get a preview of a new auto museum that's opening soon, and take a look at the Switzerland County Museums. This historic garage building on Main Street is going to be part of a new auto museum coming to Vevay, but for the fall of 2022 it is hosting a temporary exhibit called Waterways, which was curated by the Smithsonian, so let's see that first. This Smithsonian exhibit is quite small. It is definitely not up to par with an exhibit at one of their museums. It's based around a group of placards and there are some artifacts. This exhibit has been traveling around southern Indiana. The economy and culture of this region has always been heavily tied to the Ohio River, so water is a very important theme. Here's a canteen from Acoma Pueblo in New Mexico, along with a Gullah Geechee basket from coastal South Carolina. There are also some mussel shell buttons from a Mississippi River community, and a New England whale oil lamp. There's a photo of some elephants catching a ferry boat. Of course, Americans love visiting rivers, lakes, beaches, and waterfalls. Here's a Viewmaster set of some Niagara Falls slides. I'd like to see those. And there's a vintage postcard set for Wisconsin Dells. That's another classic tourist town. The exhibit emphasizes the importance of water to our environment, but of course there are serious issues with water pollution that has long been a problem with the Ohio River. The town also put together a local display about Vevay's history of ferry boats. This is an original sign for the Martha A. Graham ferry boat, a diesel-powered sidewheeler that served as a ferry between Vevay and Gang, Kentucky, the smaller town across the river. And that was how people got to the other side of the Ohio River. When the Markland Dam was opened to traffic several miles up the river in 1978, there was no longer a need for the ferry, so it was discontinued. I really like this old highway sign mapping Switzerland County. I guess they used to call the river road Wonderland Way. It does seem that many visitors have ridden ferries before, although I don't think I have. This room is going to be part of an upcoming auto museum, and they already have this custom-made Ford Vevay Auto Company sign. That is awesome. My guess is that this room will house some older automobiles, like this one. It has a sign for the Vevay Horseless Carriage Company. A section of the future auto museum is opened up today for visitors, so let's take a glimpse at what's to come. Now I'm not sure what this museum is going to be called yet. I've heard that it will be the Racing Performance Museum, but maybe they'll choose something else. Clearly there is going to be an emphasis on race cars and racing history. There's quite a few race cars displayed out here. I don't know the background behind these cars, there's no placards yet, but I believe at least one of them was driven by Mario Andretti. There are plenty more cars in the back, waiting to be organized for when this museum is completed. The race cars will be in this part of the structure. Here is Fast Freddy, a race car driving Fred the Goat. The museum will also feature a former Texaco station on site. There's a fancy car parked out front. Here's Texaco serviceman Fred. There's a scale inside, and they have their own Vevay version of the old Texaco jingle from the 60s, that you can trust your car to the goat that wears the star. And it looks like there's some more vintage cars inside the station. I am really looking forward to seeing this open in Vevay. I never imagined that an auto museum would open here, so this is just awesome. I will return to make a video on it as soon as I can once it opens, but if you want to see this brand new museum for yourself, they expect to open in early 2023. You can check SwitzerlandCountyTourism.com for some information once it opens. The Lewis and Clark Auto Route passes through Vevay. Now we're going to visit the Switzerland County Museums, which are wonderful. I have filmed a video here in the past, but it will be good to check in again. The first museum is the Life on the Ohio River History Museum, which will extend on the Smithsonian exhibit's theme with lots of local river history and artifacts. There are lots of antique model riverboats, including replicas of the Robert E. Lee and the Natchez, which engage in a famous steamboat race. This is a model of the City of Louisville steamer that was created in the 1930s. These cases contain various pieces of river memorabilia, including a patent model for a steering improvement that was patented by Vevay residents in 1866. There's some memorabilia from the Delta Queen, which I hope to ride one day. Here are more models of riverboats that once trudged along the Ohio. This chair belonged to Ulysses P. Shank, who is known as the Hay King. He ran a hay shipping empire out of Vevay and became really rich. Here's a bunch of Shank-related artifacts, including a Shank hay account book. These were provided to all the farmers who used Shank's boats. There's some marble and a fork from the steamer United States of America, which horrifically blew up. This is a pilot wheel from a Graham Company ferry. From my understanding, the company that built the Martha A. Graham. And this sign was aboard the Martha Graham here in Vevay until 1978, when she was retired. That's a chunk from the old Indian Creek Bridge. The Switzerland County Historical Museum is housed next door inside the historic 1860 Presbyterian Church. There are several themed exhibits about the county's heritage, but I'm only going to show the best artifacts in the new displays. This is a replica hay press. Hay production was big business here in the county, and the Historical Society actually restored an authentic hay press, which I have shown in operation in my Chabo farmstead videos. It's pretty cool. This was the first piano in the state of Indiana. It was owned by Mary Wright, who unhappily came to Indiana from London in the early 19th century. She hated it here, and pretty well all she did was play this piano until she passed away in 1875. This is the uniform of Samuel Woodville, who I would argue should be just as well known as other World War I heroes like Alvin York, as Woodville took out 3 German machine gun positions by himself, while surrounded by mustard gas, and that allowed for his men to get to safety. He received most of the major awards, and was called the most outstanding soldier of the Great War by General Pershing himself. Woodville was even a pallbearer for the funerals of the unknown soldier and General Pershing. He lived and died here in Vevay. I've done some research and I think the house he died in has been torn down, so it is really neat to see his uniform here, as unfortunately his story doesn't get told much. Here's an antique dentist chair. Alongside the golden Vevay Deposit Bank sign, there are lots of antique Halloween decorations. It looks like they have a temporary Halloween display for the spook season. I like that black cat mask. This case used to be filled with Native American artifacts, but it is now full of vintage Halloween fun. There's a postcard of a witch with a devil. I really like the vintage Halloween stuff. There's the Old Town postal boxes. They have an updated Native American history display based on the Burley collection, and it looks really good. There's a chronology of arrowheads found in the county, from 12,000 years ago to 800 years ago. And here are more relics like arrowheads and other pieces. That antique Hershey can is filled with ancient arrowheads. This is the static machine, which a teacher used to, quote, rejuvenate students at the Vevay High School by electrically shocking them back to attention. Now heading upstairs to the chapel. It was probably put on the second floor to help protect against river flooding. This election sign from 1896 is really interesting. It mentions a second Declaration of Independence, which was what the Populist Party called their platform. They passed it in July of 1896 at their convention in Chicago. The Populists endorsed William Jennings Bryan for president in 1896, so this election sign advertises Bryan on the back side, though it's hard to see. That's a really awesome piece of political history. And this is the chapel of the Presbyterian Church, which is largely restored and used as a storage area by the museum. This trunk belonged to a showgirl named Ruth Liddy, who performed across America, as well as in France and Russia. There's an antique phonograph and record player. So definitely stop into the Switzerland County museums if you visit Vevay. I do have a more complete tour on them. It's an older video, but I'll link it in the description. I also wanted to stop into the Switzerland County Art Center, as they have a temporary exhibition on the eccentric artwork of Anne Farnsley. Farnsley was a Vevay resident who created some abstract artwork. Sadly, she passed away last year in the fall of 2021, so the community is putting on this exhibit of her work. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. Also check out my other videos on museums, roadside attractions, and more across America. I was in Vevay for Sleepy Hollow Day, and they had a really cool antique car show, which is featured in a separate video that is linked in the description. Thanks for watching.